So right now, I'm sharing my screen. All of you could see right now the product, which is UFile, okay, and UFile itself. And right now, I'm in what's called the interview screen. So the product itself is split up into 5 screens, which are represented by the 5 tabs that you see here at the top of my screen. So it's like basically a 5-step process to completing a tax return. Okay, so you can start with, for example, the start screen, which essentially allows you to either load a new file or to carry forward an existing file that you've already. So let's say you've used the U file in the prior year, you can actually carry it forward to the current year in order to get some of the basic information, especially the carry forwards within your file. Okay, that would be the start screen. That would be the number one over here. The number two screen right here is the interview screen, and this is where you're gonna enter all of your tax information. So all the numbers that have to be on your tax return, all the slips that you have to enter, all the receipts that you have to enter, they're all going to be entered within that one screen, which is the interview screen. And of course, the name says it all. The interview screen, the program is going to ask you questions along the way that you simply answer. And then by answering the questions, the program is going to fill in the appropriate fields on the official forms that have to be submitted to Revenue Canada and to Revenue Quebec. So, of course, we know that for Quebec, we're unique when it comes to tax return preparation on the personal side, in that we have 2 returns to file instead of one. While the rest of Canada, you're only filing one tax return. Okay, that's the uniqueness of the returns. Now, the next screen will be the review screen, which is represented by the 3rd tab over here. And this is where the program will grab the information that you entered in the interview and will fill in the appropriate forms for you. Okay, so the program will simply do that in this case. And now, what the review will do is it'll give you a bare bones result of your returns. It's going to tell you whether you've got a refund or a balance owing. And then from there, it's going to tell you, it's going to give you a bare bones summary of the tax return itself. And then from there, um, what's called, you'll see some messages that you need to go through to see whether you are ready to net file or to electronically file your return or not. So the program's going to give you a bunch of messages to tell you, okay, you're missing this, you're missing that. Go ahead and complete it in order to file your return. From there, the 4th screen is the tax return screen, and this is where the program will grab the information that you entered in the interview screen and will fill in the appropriate forms in the fields for you. So you're going to get the actual reproduction of the official federal and provincial forms from in this case, what you entered in the interview screen. Okay, so it's going to fill all that in. We're going to see that as we go along. And then finally, once you've checked your return, you've checked the official forms, you see that everything is correct, everything looks fine. You end up on the 5th screen, which is the Netfile screen. The program will grab the information from the tax return screen and will fill in. And in this case, it will not only has it filled it in, but then it'll create the file that will be transmittable to both governments. Okay, so you'll be able to transmit the return to both governments. It'll be 2 separate transmissions, one for the federal and one for Quebec. And that's essentially, you're basically done. What the program will do is simply transmit the returns and collect the acknowledgments from both governments for you and put it in the file to show you that it is confirmed and that it has been sent. All right, so I'm starting with a brand new file. So let's say I'm a new user to UFile. Okay, I'm starting with a brand new file, and now I'm in the interview screen. We're going to go through now the navigation of the interview screen. Now, the program, once you're starting the file, you're starting with a family head over here. Okay, as you see the tab, and this is, of course, the first person you create within a family grouping. All right. So in this case, it's very important to choose the right person who's going to be family head. It could be the higher income spouse. It could be the lower income spouse. It doesn't really matter. The key is that it is not a dependent. Okay, that's the key. You have to make sure that who you create as your family head. And if you're doing it for yourself, of course, you're going to put yourself as your file head or your family head. But if you're creating it for other, friends and family or whoever, okay, just be aware that essentially what you're creating, what you're putting there is a caregiver. So you've got a person who's got dependents as well. You have to make sure that no dependent is a family head or a spouse. Okay, and you see the represented just below the main tab here of the interview screen. So you see you got the family head, you got the spouse, and you got the dependents. All right, that you could add, and you add those family members as you go along. Now, the interview screen is split up into 3 sections. Okay, you see right here, I've got a menu here on the left, I've got an entry screen on the right, and then I've got another subdivided screen here on the right, which is what we call our diagnostics. Okay, so the interview screen is split up into three. The left-hand section here, the left-hand menu, okay, is what we call, I commonly refer to as the left-hand navigator, but it's basically a left-hand menu. And this is where you will add all the appropriate sections that you need to complete your return. Okay, so all the relevant sections that pertain to your return will be added within this left-hand menu, or what I call left-hand navigator. Okay, so at one point, the program is going to ask you to provide the sections that you need to complete your return. We're going to see that as we go along. It's called the interview setup. That's why it's in bold. Okay, and then once you've chosen the appropriate sections, the program is going to add those sections to your left-hand menu or your left-hand navigator in this case. Now, the moment you've got that left-hand navigator set up, any section you choose in the left-hand navigator on the right, you're going to have the entry page. So for example, I choose over here the CRA questions on the left-hand menu, and the program now provides me with an entry page for the CRA questions. If I choose the T4 section over here, the program provides me with the entry page for the T4. All right, so that's how these pages are divided. On the left-hand menu, you've got over here the the relevant section that you're choosing, and on the right, you've got the entry, essentially the entry page where you're going to enter the information for that section. All right, this is what the first portion of this right hand screen is about. Now, the second portion is the diagnostics. And this is where, as you're entering information in the file, the program is going to provide you with diagnostics telling you or pointing your attention to the fact that you're missing certain information in order to complete your file, or that you made errors in the entries on certain sections. Okay, so this is what this section here of the right-hand page is about. It's a diagnostics page. Now, what I recommend to everybody as you're going along with your entries is don't get too caught up with this section over here when you're entering your information. Just go to it at the end when you've actually entered all your information, because as you're entering these sections one by one, for sure the diagnostics will trigger because you'll be missing information as you're entering those sections. Okay, so the key is complete all the appropriate sections for your file, then go to the diagnostics and see if you're missing something. Okay, in the beginning, it's gonna light up with a bunch of messages. Okay, but those messages will usually, for the most part, clear up the moment you've completed the relevant sections. Okay, so don't get too worried or bent up about this about the diagnostics. Wait to the end of your interview process in order to go and consult it. Okay, so from here, let's have a look now, and let's start entering some information in the file. Okay, let's start entering the interview screen. Let's see how we enter certain information. So I'm going to go ahead and put in my information over here. Okay, and let's have a look at how we enter. So I'm going through one tab to the other by simply tabbing in this case. Okay. All right, so I'm just entering, some of my basic information. Now, province of residence, be very mindful. This could be a trick question, okay? Because remember that you could have been a resident of another province at the end of the previous taxation year, and then you, for example, moved to Quebec in 2025, or it could be vice versa. You could have been a resident of Quebec up until December 31st, but then in 2025 you moved, okay, to another province. All right. The key is, which province were you living in as of that date? Okay, as of December 31st, 2024. That's the important part here. And that's what you are choosing here as your province of residence. So I'm just going to assume the majority of you are from Quebec in this case, and I'm going to choose Quebec as my province of residence. Marital status on December 31st, you're choosing in this case, what is your marital status? Be very mindful of the common law spouse rules. Okay, because remember that the Civil Code and the Income Tax Act are two very different things when it comes to how they interpret what a spouse is. Okay, to the Civil Code, there's no real recognition of a common law spouse or somebody that you're living with in a conjugal relationship. Okay, but when it comes to the Income Tax Act, there is a recognition. So if you have a common law spouse, it is one and the same as if you have a married spouse. Okay, to the government, what all they want to know is that you are with a spouse or without a spouse. Okay, that's all they really want to know. Okay, and the common law is a very important concept when it comes to the Income Tax Act, which basically means that essentially, if you're living with somebody in a conjugal relationship in the same residence for 12 consecutive months, you are now common law. Okay, to the Income Tax Act, which means for income tax purposes, you have a spouse. And of course, a lot of claims and a lot of amounts, a lot of calculations will change the moment you are officially recognized as having a spouse. Okay, so in this case, I'll choose married, but if you're widowed, you choose widowed. If you're separated, you choose separated. If you're divorced, you choose divorce. You never go back to single, by the way. Okay, so if you are widowed and you did not remarry, if you are separated or if you are divorced, you stay that way until you get another spouse. Okay, that's how it works. You never go back to single. Okay, so in this case, I'll choose married to show the example of how I can file for my married spouse for my spouse as well. Did your marital status change during 2024? So this is an important question because again, certain claims will be certain amounts that you claim on the return will change depending on the fact that your status changed, whether you separated or whether you became widowed in the year. This is an important aspect that you need to indicate to the software in order for the software to understand how to compute amounts in a different way. So gender, this is a mandatory question. Don't cut my head off on this one. This is a mandatory question on the Quebec side. They want to know if you are male or female. You have to answer this question. It is mandatory for the return. And then finally, did your mailing address change to the last return? That's an important question as well, because if your mailing address has changed before you file you change during the year, especially when you're filing your return, you must advise at the very least Revenue Canada ahead of time. You cannot indicate an address change on the return. Okay, the government needs to know of the change before you file the returns. You have to either contact the CRA directly or you have to change your address in the My Account portal of the CRA. Okay, and and that's why the program is asking you this question because it'll prompt a diagnostic to tell you, hey, make sure that you call the CRA, that you contact the CRA, and tell them of your address change. Otherwise, they won't do the change, even though you've indicated your new address on the tax return. Okay, so be very, very mindful of that. I'll say no for now. And once I've completed now this entry page, I simply click next at the bottom of the screen. And now the program will go to the next section, which in this case will be the spouse interview type. So notice the moment I chose Quebec in my identification, now I've got Quebec only sections, which is normal because I do have to file a separate Quebec return. And now I get the spouse interview type in this case where I indicate how I want to complete my spouse's return. Now, what we ordinarily recommend is that you file both returns at the same time. In other words, you are producing for both you and your spouse. And the reason why we recommend this and why it says recommended here is because there are certain amounts on the tax return, as you've seen with the courses you've taken through the Atwater Library, when it comes to the tax return, there are certain amounts that are transferable between spouses. Okay, so for example, donations is one, medical expenses is another, pension income splitting is another example of this as well. Okay, so if you want the program to optimize your returns and transfer these amounts amongst you in order to get a better combined result, okay, that you need to complete your spouse's return with yours. Okay, it's the only way the program is going to properly be able to do those transfers. If you're not producing your spouse's return with yours, then you choose net income only, and then you have to indicate certain basic information of your spouse's return in the file. Okay, because on your return you have to publish, whether it's on the federal or Quebec return, you have to you have to publish the name of your spouse, their SIN, their date of birth, and their net income for the year. This is necessary information on your return. Otherwise, you cannot transmit. Okay, so because of that, if you choose net income only, you don't produce your spouse's return with yours. You still have to enter that basic information. While if you do complete information, you just complete your spouse's return with yours and let the program do the rest. Okay, so in my case, I'll do complete information, and then I will click next. So now we get to the current address. So we enter our mailing address, and you see here the program warns you of that mailing address change with the CRA. Okay, like I mentioned before, you cannot change your mailing address through the return. You have to contact the CRA ahead of time. Either you call them or you go to the My Account portal on the CRA website and you make the change directly on the website. Now, I can't recommend enough, whether it's on the federal side or on the Quebec side, to sign up to My Account with CRA and with Review Quebec. I can't recommend it enough. Okay, the reason why I recommend it so much, and I'll be basically the salesperson for Revenue Canada, Revenue Quebec for these portals, is that everything that pertains to your tax situation will be found in those portals. Okay, so whether it is your notice of assessments from the previous years, any carry forward amounts that you have that you can use in the current year, all of that information is there, including your TFSA room and limit, which, by the way, it's the only place that you can see your TFSA room and limit is the My Account portal with the CRA. And considering that you can log in to the My Account portal with a CRA or Revenue Quebec using your bank account, your online banking credentials, it has never been easier to set up that account. Okay, you don't even need a different user ID or passcode that you need to memorize or to keep somewhere. Okay, if you're using online banking, you can use your online banking to log in to CRA's My Account and to Revenue Quebec's My Account. They have what they call the partner sign. Okay, so again, I can't recommend it enough. Okay, go ahead and please sign up to both their portals because your whole tax situation is found within those portals. All right, so I will start entering that information here. So I'm just entering just some fictitious stuff here. I'm going to enter Santa Claus's postal code over here, and which is the case, by the way. I'm not making it up. That's exactly, if you have kids or grandkids that want to send letters or postcards to Santa Claus, that's the postal code. All right, and then from there, now back in the day, the phone number was mandatory in Quebec, but I just noticed this year that it doesn't look like it. But I would still recommend that you put it in just in case I'm wrong on this, because I did try in a file and all of a sudden it actually accepted it. Accepted without a phone number, which I was very surprised at. So I enter that information. Then I click next, and now I go to the CRA questions. And the CRA questions, these are basic questions that you have to answer on the tax return. Okay, and this is the admin side, I will call the administrative side of the return. So a lot of these type of questions that you have to answer with both Revenue Quebec and Revenue Canada. So I'll choose. So first, language of correspondence. I'll choose English. Is this the first time you're filing a tax return in Canada? So in other words, are you an immigrant of Canada in this case? You choose yes or no. If it's yes, unfortunately, you'll have to paper file your return. The government will not accept it electronically usually, but that's why the question is asked. Now, do you own foreign property with a cost that is over $100,000? This question, by the way, also includes any stocks that you have in foreign exchanges. So, for example, if let's say you own U.S. stocks, but in a brokerage account that is a taxable account, meaning they're not an RSP or TFSA or an FHSA, then you would have to list those properties to the federal government on a special form, which is the T1135. All right. So in this case, I'll say no and just continue on. Did you sell your principal residence during the year? This is important. Even though ordinarily the sale of a principal residence is tax exempt, you still have to enter the details of the transaction on the return. And this is why the program is asking you that question in order to generate that appropriate section to enter that information. Now, are you a diplomat? I'm going to assume no. If there is a diplomat, well, welcome to the session. But I doubt we've got any diplomats right now here. And then very important, Elections Canada question. We're in it right now. We're in a federal election. You might wonder right now, how does the federal government or Elections Canada find you to tell you where your electoral booth will be? Okay, they find it through the tax return. That's how they do it. Okay, so essentially you say yes to this question ordinarily, whether you're a Canadian citizen or not. and then you specify whether you want Elections Canada to use your mailing address from the tax return as your address in order to determine where you will go vote. Okay, and that's essentially what this is. All right, that's what this question is about. I would recommend to say yes to both. Okay, that I mean we are in a federal election right now, so if you want the federal government to find you in this case, this is the way to do it. Now from here, you get the question for email notifications. So this is the option. This is the option where you are telling the CRA that you want to get notified by email that your assessment that your tax return has been assessed. I would strongly recommend. Now, I can't really, I can't tell you there's a right or wrong answer here, but my recommendation would be to say no to this question because the moment you accept to take an email notification, you will no longer get a mailed notice of assessment to you. Okay, so I would now, if that's what you want, you don't want the paper one anymore, and you'll just simply log, and you've already created your My Account portal with the CRA. By all means, go ahead and say yes. Okay, but if you want a paper copy of your assessment, you must say no to this question. All right, and leave it at no. Do you have a foreign mailing address for the Canada Revenue Agency? We'll say no. I'm assuming most of you don't have a foreign mailing address. All right. Now I click on next. I get to the next section. That's Revenue Quebec. And we're going to get the same kind of questions for Revenue Quebec. Okay. So is this a first year you're filing Quebec return? You say yes or no. Are you eligible for the person living alone credit? So now you might say, so what is this? What is this person living alone credit? Well, there's one way of finding out. Anywhere you are in the software and you're not sure as to what the program is asking you with a specific question. In this case, I'm not sure what that person living alone is. What is that credit in this case? I have no idea. Well, then simply click on the question mark next to the field, and now the program's going to give you the explanation to that field. And it's gonna, in this case, it's telling me the rules whether I can claim this credit for person living alone. Okay, in this case, what it basically is telling me is I must be a person who has not lived with another adult in my household during the calendar year. Okay, throughout the calendar year in this case. If the answer is yes, then I simply choose yes. If not, it's not. In my case, I have a spouse who I live with in this case. That's what I'm going to indicate. So I will say no. So again, you simply click on the question mark right here, and the program will explain what that question is, what exactly the program is asking. Now, the accelerated refund, this is another program. Um, this is another program that the government offers to speed up okay, the refund that you would get. So in other words, when you're indicating that you want an accelerated refund, you're telling Revenue Quebec that to take your word for it. Okay, essentially whatever you've determined using UFile is the right result, and they'll simply within a span of less than a week, they'll send you the check. Okay, either they're going to deposit it directly, which usually for most of you that's what's going to happen. They're going to do a direct deposit in your account. Okay, or they'll send you they'll mail you a check. Okay, that's what they're going to do. Now, the catch to this is that the government's not checking your return. They're going to check it later on. Okay, and so you're telling the government, take my word for it. Okay, and just send me my money, and that's what the government's going to do. But if later on they check the return, they see that there's a mistake on your return. Okay, then the government's going to reassess you and send you another letter telling you, hey, we paid you $3,000. You know what? You owe us 1,000 because this was wrong. Okay. And they could do this a lot of times after tax season, after the deadline, which is April 30th. And that could be tricky for you because if it's after April 30th, what happens in that scenario is that they'll start charging interest because you got an amount that you shouldn't have gotten and you've had it past April 30th. So you owe them, on this case, a certain amount and they could charge you interest. My personal recommendation would be no, let them properly check your return. And if there's a mistake on your return, they could see that they're gonna correct it right away. And that way, at the very least, you'll know exactly what you're supposed to be getting. And it's a lot better, in my book, to get $2,000 instead of $3,000 than to get the $3,000 and then them asking you later on for the $1,000 back. Okay, that's just my opinion. Again, you do as you wish. My opinion would be don't go for the accelerated refund. That would be my recommendation. Now, the government has added a new section, a new form for crypto assets. If you hold or transact in crypto, or you acquired crypto assets during the year, you must specify it now to Revenue Quebec, and they want to know the details, okay, of what you have. So I'll say no for now. Solidarity tax credit. This is, of course, is the quarterly credit, just like the equivalent of the GST credit on the federal side, but that includes also a housing component and the QST component as well. All right. So you simply choose yes to this one. At the very, even if you're not eligible, it doesn't matter. Okay. The worst you're going to get is simply a rejection from the government to tell you, you know what, your income's too high, so you're not getting it. But at the very least, go ahead and apply for it. Okay. There's really no sense in not applying. Okay. If a lot of you are living on a small pension amount, you are eligible for the solidarity tax credit almost automatically. Tax shield, leave this one blank. And then the rest, leave in blank. Again, don't go for the notifications and the receiving online. Again, the moment you agree to this, you no longer get a paper notice of assessment. Okay, so don't choose anything in these areas. All right, so I'm going to stop here to see for questions. All right, so I think there was a bunch of questions that came in before I get to Quebec drug insurance, which is an important question on the return. So let's go ahead and go through the questions. All right.
Okay,
Yeah,
Jerry,
go ahead, Lynn.
are you seeing the chat the same as
Mm-hmm.
I am?
I am. Yeah, I'm looking at it.
Okay. Okay. So Anthony is just reinforcing something that you said. Anthony, do you want to unmute and
Mm-hmm.
add anything?
Yeah, can you hear me?
Yeah.
Yes.
Okay, we've been using UFile for a while, and I noticed when we carry forward the data, it brings in all the slips from previous years. Is there a way to not have that happen?
It brings in the descriptions, you mean, of the slips?
Yeah, like I'll have a whole bunch of like R5 or T5s, T508s,
Okay.
T3s. Um,
Okay.
and I
Okay.
checked it last night just to see if there was an update that does it differently, but I'm still getting like all the forms and I have to go through and manually delete them one at a time.
Okay. As of right now, no.
Okay.
Because a lot of our clients actually they usually want that. They want to see what they had last year, right? Especially when it comes to T4s and things like that. But I understand
Okay.
what you mean by it. If you've got a lot of investments, well, a
Yeah,
lot of these things don't repeat, from one year to the next, and
exactly.
it becomes cumbersome. But unfortunately, the only issue there is that it's an all or nothing proposition.
Okay.
If we take off the investments, then we take off the other slips that could be useful to have that
Yeah.
information. So unfortunately, it'll be there.
No,
Uh,
no problem. I understand.
yeah.
Thank
Okay.
you.
No problem. No
Okay,
problem.
next, Jerry, Judy asks, what if
Yeah.
someone moved to another province in July or,
Yeah.
pick a month?
Yeah. Well, the key is if you move to another province in July of the tax year, okay, then it is the province that you move to. That's what you're selecting. Because remember, it is the province that you are residing in as of the last day of the year. Where have you established your residential ties to? So if you moved in July to another province, then that's the province that you're filing in. Okay, that's the one. All right, that's how that works.
Got it. So next, uh, there's a question. What happens if
Mhm.
you choose single instead of common law if your partner is divorced?
Well, if your partner is divorced and you are common law now, then you are common law. I think I'm understanding the question that way. In this case, so essentially, okay, what happens if you file single instead of common law if your partner is divorced? No, you're supposed to be common law. Even if your partner is divorced, okay, if you meet the criteria of being in a conjugal relationship with that person for 12 months and you're living in the same residence, then you are common law. That to the Income Tax Act, you're considered common law, which means that that person is your spouse for income tax purposes. Again, it's very different from the civil code. The civil code does not necessarily recognize a common law spouse, but the Income Tax Act does, and it's one and the same as a married spouse. It's no different to the Income Tax Act. So you would be considered common law in this case. That's what.
iPad 2, does that answer your question? Um, Moving along,
Mhm.
Judy typed in, if common law and separate, why still considered you are together?
because you don't get an
Because you
official
don't get
divorce.
an official divorce.
No, well, first of all, you can't get a divorce if you're common law and you separated, because there's no legal contract there.
Right.
Okay, you don't have a legal contract. You don't have a legal marriage contract, so you can't have a divorce if you're common law. If you're common law, you could be separated, and that's how you stay until you get another spouse. Okay, that's how that works. So remember, you could be, if you're married and you separate, you're considered separated. You're not officially separated if you are divorced. Separation and divorce are two different things. Separation is you are no longer in a relationship with that person. A divorce is the legal contract has been dissolved. Okay, that's the
Through a
difference.
court order.
Through a
Yeah, I
court order,
understand that.
exactly.
Can I?
Yeah,
Ter-
yeah. Go ahead, Judy.
What I was saying, if someone's common, know someone who's common law, okay, for example,
Yeah,
and they don't want to be common law anymore, they want to go their
yes,
separate ways.
yes.
And well, I thought I understood previously that you had said, but they're still considered together. You don't do a separate tax return. I don't understand that. Wouldn't you
No,
do your
no.
tax return?
No, no. That's not what I had said. What it is, when you are common law and then you separate. Okay, you are separated. That's it. You're no longer together. You're no longer common law. The
Right.
moment there's a breakdown in the relationship, you are separated. And then if you are separated for 90 consecutive days after that, you are officially separated you're separated then. Okay, then it becomes official as of the date when the breakdown in the relationship happened. Okay, so you're no longer common law, you're considered separated, and you have a status change in this case. So on the return here, where it says, did your marital status change in the year? You have to choose yes in that scenario. Okay, if there's a breakdown in the relationship, you were common law, and there's a breakdown in the relationship, and now you are separate.
Okay, one of it is shorter than 90 days.
The 90 days is to make it official, right? So if let's say you separate, but within 90 days you reconcile, then you don't indicate separated as of that point. Okay, you are still common law because within the 90 days you reconciled.
Yeah, but no
Okay,
reconciliation.
if there's no reconciliation, then you're separated. The 90 days is just to make it official. So, for
Okay.
example, if let's say 1st of July I separate, okay, we have a breakdown of relationship and I separate, and then it's August, September, October. By the 1st of October, let's say that's 90 days, okay, we don't reconcile, then I'm separated as of July 1st. The 90 days is only to make it official. But if I reconcile within those 90 days, I've never really separated. I'm still common law. Okay, I haven't separated in that case.
All right, thank you.
Okay, no problem.
Hey, Anthony has a question about tax splitting. Anthony, feel free to
Yeah,
just go
just
over your question.
Another question with like the investment slips. I've
Yeah.
noticed that as of last year, I started to like tweak the percentages between me and my spouse, and the total tax bill can change,
Yeah.
a few $100 either way. How
Yeah.
does UFile do the splits? Is it an optimization or is it like a 50-50 split on all these forms?
But which slips are you talking about?
Like-
Pension or
No.
investments?
No, like say a joint T5 or a joint T3 or a joint T5008.
Okay.
And they're sold and it's in both our names, so you can choose your percentages.
Okay. You can't choose your percentages.
Oh, you
If it's a
can't?
joint account, no, you cannot. No, if it's a joint account, it's
Okay.
50%. You have to put 50-50. It's whatever the ownership of that account is. You
Okay.
understand? So you
Yeah.
can't play around with that. That's why
You
I
can't
asked you if it
tweak
was
it.
pension or investments. Pension you could tweak.
Okay.
Pension, and that program does that automatically because you could split the pension up to 50% of
Gotcha.
your pension. You can send, but not investments though.
Okay.
Investments are not
Okay.
allowed.
Okay.
Okay.
Good to know. Thanks.
No problem. No
Okay,
problem.
next, Lynn Bennett.
Yeah.
As most of the audience well knows, Lynn Bennett is a financial educator
Yes.
who does regular presentations for the Outwater Library, and
Mhm.
this season has done 3 income tax preparation presentations. Lynn, would you like to unmute yourself and speak for yourself?
Mhm.
Yes. Hi, Jerry.
Hi, Lynn.
so glad to see you doing this type of presentation.
Thank you for being here. Actually, it's great to have a tax guru, a tax expert with us here too. That's awesome.
I just had a quick question about
Yeah,
those
sure.
address changes because I mean, there are UFile products that are e-file enabled, so
Mhm.
you know that a tax preparer uses. And I was just wondering because I haven't used it. I haven't used
Yeah.
this feature yet, and I don't know if I can do it. And I just wanted to know what to tell people.
Yeah.
Can the tax preparer do an address change via the e-file enabled software?
Normally, yes.
Okay.
Normally there's a field. So for example, when it says, did your mailing address change since the last return? When you indicate yes, that would
Okay.
trigger a field only for e-filers though, like you just mentioned, not
Yes.
Netfile. Netfile
Okay.
would not work.
Okay. All right.
So you would say yes, and but I would tell you, Lynn, by experience, sometimes they still don't do it.
Okay.
And I would get your clients to do it ahead of time either way, because we've gotten that call with our professional product all the time where they would say, well, I told the program that it's yes, and yet the government still sent it to the wrong address.
Okay, yeah,
So
yeah.
yeah.
That's what I do tell people. I do tell people to keep their address and also
Mhm.
their direct deposit information up to
Mhm.
date with them. In fact, the CRA has just removed the
Yeah.
possibility of a tax preparer to do the direct deposit
Yeah.
through
Which
e-file.
is, yeah, an
So
unfortunate development. Yeah.
yeah,
Yeah,
so
absolutely.
I encourage people to do that through their My Account, and I'm so glad as well that you're encouraging people to sign up for My Account. I do that as well in the presentations. Thank you very much. I don't want
Yeah.
to take up much time, so
Yeah,
thank you
no,
very
no problem, no problem. No, and Lynn, thank you. It's great. Like I said, it's great to have another tax expert here, to help out, and to provide feedback.
Okay.
So yeah, it's essentially, I can't recommend it enough. And I always joke that I become like a salesperson for a CRA and Revenue Quebec, but it's true. It's such
Yeah.
a brilliant portal, because you can do
Yeah.
everything on it, including, I think the one that's the most misunderstood is adjustments. You could do really easy adjustments on those portals, where it's got the two columns. What did you declare originally and what should you be declaring? And then you just pop in the amount, you click a button and it's done. I mean, it's brilliant, really nicely done. So that's why, yeah, I can't recommend it enough. I can't recommend it enough for all of you to sign up to that. And again, like I mentioned, your credentials to log in is your online banking credentials. You could sign in with partner sign in. So it really, it makes, it's child's play to do. So you might as well go into it and do it. All right, what's the next question?
So the next question is one that I'm sure is in a question in many of our minds. This all sounds great, the My Account, but we keep hearing horror stories in the news about,
Yeah.
Government and major business systems being hacked.
Mhm.
So the question is, how safe is My Account?
Listen, it's safe, and remember, the hacks, there hasn't been too many hacks that have happened. I mean, I know that the hacks get a lot of headlines, but you have to picture how many times this has happened to the CRA. It hasn't really happened very often. Okay. Now, secondly, whether you have a My Account or not does not matter to the hacker. Chances are they're not going through My Account to get your info. They're going to go to some other place that the CRA has where your stuff resides online. And it's it'll be quicker for them to get it in the aggregate. Because remember, they're not just hacking that one person. They're trying to get a bunch of SIN numbers in one shot. That's what they're really trying to do. So it doesn't matter whether you have My Account or not. If they're going to get hacked, you're going to get hacked either way. Okay, so it doesn't really matter. So no, go ahead. That should not prevent you from signing up to My Account. Go ahead and sign up. It's well worth it.
Okay. So I'm still scrolling here.
Mhm.
The same person, iPad 2, where
Yeah.
would I get the breakdown of interest on my T5? The bank cannot help me.
No, the banks should provide you with a summary with a T5. That's what mine does. I'm with Royal Bank and they do that. What they do is that I get dividends, for example. I got two brokerage accounts with Royal Bank. One of them that's taxable, so they have to provide me with a T5 slip, and with a T5 slip comes a summary that shows exactly where my payments came from. So normally your bank should be able to provide that. If not, look at your statements. Your bank should provide statements that show you the breakdown of what you got as far as income.
Okay, and the same person says, are there tax implications when you file as a single person if
Yeah.
you are in a common law relationship?
Yes, absolutely there are, because there's certain claims that you're claiming on an individual basis where they should be claimed on a combined basis. So for example, a lot of benefits that get paid out, whether it's GST credit, whether it's solidarity tax credit, whether it is guaranteed income supplement, for example, these are benefits that normally, if you have a common law spouse, will be determined now on a combined basis, which means chances are the government is overpaying you. Because if you're claiming them on an individual basis, chances are you're going to get more than if it's on a combined basis. So if the government catches on, that you should have been common law, but you were not, then they can reassess the back years and say, you know what, hey, that guaranteed income supplement that you thought you were getting, well, we're going to claw a portion of it back. Okay, because you are living with a spouse, and you have that extra income there as well. All right, so and you might think, well, how would they catch me in this case? Well, I could tell you at one point, Revenue Quebec had the really great idea of going through the SAC, which is the what's called where you get your license, right? Your car license. And what they would do is that they would check individuals of the same age with the same mailing address, and that's how they started matching. And now they didn't do this often, but they did it a couple of times, and they caught quite a few people that way through the common law status. So I would say Quebec is easier for them to check. CRA is harder unless they actually do an audit. But Quebec, like I said, at one point they went through the driver's license addresses, and that's how they started catching people. So I would say, as much as possible, be on the legal side. I mean, I have to recommend that you have to be on the legal side and file common law.
iPad too. Did you get your questions answered? You're welcome to speak up. Okay, moving along. Joyce, for the sake of not spending all afternoon on individual requests, can we please move on? Okay,
Yeah.
Joyce. Yes.
All right. So let me
So
continue on. Yeah, and we'll get back to these other questions. All right.
yeah.
So
Carry on, Jerry.
yeah, all right, perfect. So let me go on to some of the other sections. All right. So first things first here. Okay, so now we get to the Quebec Drug Insurance Plan question, which is a very important question and a source of a lot of reassessments when it comes to the tax returns of Revenue Quebec. All right, so Quebec Drug Insurance Plan, this is basically who is compensating or who is reimbursing a portion of the cost of your prescription drugs. That's essentially what the government is asking, because of course, this insurance is not free. Okay, we all pay through our tax dollars, and the government charges us directly for that insurance on our tax return. And then depends on what our situation is when it comes to drug insurance. Are you, for example, still with an employer? Are you with an employer that covers you under a private insurance, which means you are not covered under the public plan? Or do you not have an employer with a private insurance? Or are you with an employer who doesn't offer any private insurance, and are you covered by default under the public plan? Okay, that's essentially what you need to answer in this question. All right, so you're indicating whether you've got a private insurance in this case or whether you are covered under the public insurance. And again, it's not free. Just remember, nothing in life is free. I know we always like to hear, "Hey, we got free healthcare." It's not free. Okay, we pay through the nose with our tax dollars. Okay, to have our public healthcare insurance. All right, so in this case, what you're indicating is, again, how are your prescription drugs covered? Okay, as far as who is reimbursing a portion of them? Is it under private insurance, usually offered by your employer? Okay, usually that's my case. For example, Thompson offers me a private insurance, which means I'm not under the government plan. I'm under the private insurance plan. Or are you covered under the Quebec Drug Insurance Plan, whether it's all year or a portion of the year? Okay, because for example, your situation can change. Let's take, for example, in the year that you take a retirement. So let's say, I've worked now for Thomson Reuters, and halfway through the year, I decide to retire on July 1st. Okay, so as of July 1st, I'm no longer covered under the private insurance, of my employer. I will now be covered under the Quebec Drug Insurance Plan, meaning under the public plan. So in that case, I would choose exceptions, Quebec Drug Insurance Plan, a part of the year, and then I indicate the exception where I'm not supposed to pay, okay, in this case. All right. And in my case, it would be a private insurance. And then I would tick the boxes where I was covered under the private insurance, which in this case would be, in my example, would be January to June. Okay. That is what I'm selecting here amongst my options. Then the rest, that means that I'm going to pay for half the year. I'm going to pay for the public insurance for half the year. Okay, well, the other half the year, I am exempt because I was covered under private insurance. Now, remember, and I mentioned this to everybody here, just like the address change, if your situation has changed in the year, you must advise the RAMQ. You must contact the RAMQ directly and tell them that your situation has changed. So, for example, if you retire, in my example, when I retire July 1st, I have to call the RAMQ to advise them that I'm retiring and that will no longer be under my private insurance with my now former employer. I will not, and that way you make sure that you don't, when you go to the pharmacy, you don't get the nasty surprise where the pharmacist is going to tell you, well, I got to charge you the full amount because you're not covered under any insurance. Okay, so you have to advise them, okay, ahead of time. All right, so that's what you're indicating here under the Quebec Drug Insurance Plan. All right, so the key is you have to be aware of what your situation is. All right, solidarity tax credit. This is again the equivalent of the GST credit, which is a quarterly payment. Solidarity could be a monthly payment as well, depending on how much you're getting. There are three components to the solidarity tax credit. Number one is the QST credit reimbursement. Okay, so basically what it is they're giving you a credit for the QST that you pay for buying goods and services every single day. Okay, that's essentially what that is. That's number one. Number two is the property component. So if you are a tenant or if you are a property owner, you will get an additional credit for the fact that you pay rent or that you pay property taxes. And the way you could claim that component as a renter is the famous Relevé 31. Okay, so you need to get a Relevé 31 from your owner, from the owner of the property, in order for you to claim that second component of the solidarity tax credit. That's the purpose of the Relevé 31. Okay, the purpose of the Relevé 31 is to allow you to claim that component, and you need to enter it in the software. Okay, there's a code that gets produced on the Relevé 31. It's like a 16-character code that you have to enter in the software. And it's the only way you're going to be able to claim the solidarity tax credit. Then the third component, which I don't believe we've got anybody here with that example, this is a Northern Village. So if you live in what the government considers a Northern Village, you get an additional credit, which is the third component. Now, again, I don't think I've got anybody here that's eligible for that, but just be aware that it's there. Okay, so throughout the year, did you live in the same dwelling? Okay, either alone, were you alone in that dwelling throughout the year? You say yes or no. In my case, it's no. Now, for those of you who are a couple who have a spouse, only one of you can claim the solidarity tax credit. You have to decide who's going to claim it on their return. When it comes to the GST credit, it's who files first that gets the credit. Okay, that's how it works on the federal side. In Quebec, you have to choose who produces the form, which is Schedule D, to claim the credit. All right, so in this case, what's called, is the address the same as on the tax return? You can say yes or no, depending. In Northern Village, it'll be no. Now, if you are a tenant or an owner of where you live, okay, and for example, as a tenant, you got a Relevé 31 under your name. Now you indicate that Relevé 31, or if you have property taxes to your name, you indicate in this case, I think it's the numéro cadastral, I think it's called, that you have to indicate for property tax. Now, as a tenant, in order to be recognized as a tenant, your name has to be on the lease. Okay, that's the owner of the property is only beholden to produce the Relevé 31 to an official tenant. Okay, so that tenant has to be the tenant that is named on the lease. Otherwise, they will not emit a Relevé 31 for anybody else. And only the person who is on the lease, whose name is on the lease, can claim that component. All right, so in this case, you would say tenant or subtenant. Okay, please select to who the Relevé 31 was issued. It could be your name, your spouse's name, or both. Okay, so let's say your name, and then you enter the code that is located on the Relevé 31. And it's a 16-digit code usually. It's alphanumeric, okay? It's got letters and numbers in it. It's just a random number. You have to plug it in, and that's the only way you can claim it. If you are an owner, then you simply say owner, and then you indicate the identification number shown or the roll number. I think it's the numéro cadastral, if memory serves me, on the French side. Okay, and that's what you indicate in there. And that's that, and now you are eligible for the additional component, which is the property component. All right. So now in my case, since I don't have these numbers, I'll simply say neither, and I'll just claim the QST. Now remember, just because you don't have a Relevy 31 or you don't have any property or you don't have a property to your name doesn't mean you're not eligible for solidarity. It just means you're not eligible for the second component. You're eligible for QST, but you're not eligible for the second component. And again, eligibility is based also on your income. Okay, it is a progressive credit, meaning the more income you make, the less you get up to a certain threshold, and then you get nothing. Okay, at that point, your income is too high. All right, now lastly, you say whether you have a spouse or not, and you indicate whether you live with your spouse. Now, this might sound like a silly question. Do I live with my spouse? But this is an actual serious question. Why? Because you could be in a situation where one spouse is in a home and one spouse is living in their home. Okay, so at that point, each one can claim theoretically the what's called the solidarity tax credit. So I'll say yes in my example, and no, my spouse does not live in a northern village. So I'll just continue on. All right, now we get to net filing. And of course, you want to net file the return. Okay, you want to absolutely electronically file the return. Okay, it is worthwhile to do. It gets assessed much more quickly. You get a confirmation from the government to tell you that they received your return. And, so you really want to do this. All right, now once we click next, you've also got.
Oh, excuse me,
Yeah,
Jerry.
yeah.
Margaret has her hand up. Margaret,
Mhm.
would you like to unmute and ask a question? Maybe it was an accident.
Okay.
So carry on, Jerry.
Okay, no problem. Now, another benefit that I did not mention of the My Account portal of the CRA in Revue Quebec is that when you're signed up for it, you're also eligible to what's called the autofill my return. Okay, and what that is essentially you can actually import the official slips under your name that the CRA and Revue Quebec have in their database, and you don't even have to fill them in. Okay, the program will auto-complete those sections for you. Okay, so that's one of the big benefits of now the only way to be able to use that feature is if you've got if you are signed up to My Account with Revue Quebec and with Revue Canada. Okay, so you have to be signed up to both of them to be able to download those slips directly into the software and have it just like the term says, autofill. Okay, essentially have those sections filled up automatically by the software. Okay, you're going to have the same question for Revue Quebec as well. Like I said, again, you need to be signed up to their online portal to be able to do so. All right, now we get to the interview setup. And this is the central page or the central section that you need to complete in order to complete your return. What the interview setup is very straightforward. It's an interview sheet. And what you're doing in that interview sheet is that you're selecting the relevant sections of your return. You're selecting what is relevant on your tax return. Okay, and the program will add whatever you select on this page. The program will add those pages as sections in the left-hand menu that in order for you to complete. So this is where you have to provide feedback to the software and say, you know what, I've got employment income. You know what, I have pension income in my file. Okay, I tick the box next to pension income. I have medical expenses. I've also got donations in my file. Okay, and so on and so forth. So you choose what is relevant to your file. Okay, you choose everything that is relevant to your file. And then once you've chosen all the appropriate sections, you simply click next at the bottom of the screen. And now the program adds those sections into your left-hand menu. Okay, so the answer to every question that you have in the software, okay, when it comes to navigating, when it comes to how do I enter, the answer to your question is the interview setup every single time. Okay, because even if you contact our support staff to ask, hey, how do I enter this in the software? The first place they're going to direct you is the interview setup. That's what they're always going to send you. Okay, is in the interview setup. And then when I go to the interview setup again, I pick and choose what is relevant. It's never long. I'm never locked out of that section. I could always go back to the interview setup at any time. Okay, I could go back to it at any time. And then I pick and choose the relevant sections, and the program will add them again to my left-hand navigator. So again, interview setup, crucial, crucial, crucial section. Okay. And then I click next, and there you go. All those sections have been added. So now I've got my T4. You see here my pension income that I've added myself. I've got my medical. I've got my donations. Everything is there. Okay. Everything that I need is there. All right. Now, let me make myself here somebody who is, let's say, retired or of pension age. Let's say. All right. And we're going to look at some of the other sections that we get. So let's say pension income. Okay, which I think is the most common example amongst this room right now. Okay, so I've got pension income over here, and now you've got all the relevant slips that come with pension income. T4A, T4A OAS, T4AP, T4 RIF, T4 RSP. These are the common sections that you would have, or the common slips that you would have with a pension income. They're all grouped up into this one section in the left-hand menu. So if let's say I've got, of course, the most common example, T4A OAS, I plug in whatever that amount is, and whatever, if there's any withholdings at source that I asked both governments to do, I simply, enter them in there. Now, any slip that I enter, you will notice the program provides you with the box numbers. All you have to do is follow the box numbers and enter the information. All right. From there, I could go back to the previous section here, the T4A or whatever pension income, and then I go to the next one. Let's say it's the T4AP, which would be Quebec pension plan benefits. Let's say it's T4 RIF or RIF income or RSP income, and so on. Let's say I had a pension, a registered pension plan, like maybe I worked for I had a public sector job. For example, I worked for the federal government, the provincial government, or municipal government. Okay, I would have in this case a T4A. All right. And I simply click on the plus sign and I enter the relevant information. All right. Now let's have a look at some other typical entries that you would have. Investment income. So if you have a typical one would be a T5 slip. So any interest or dividends that you would collect from, let's say, a taxable brokerage account or a T3. Let's say you own mutual funds in this case, or you own ETFs in a taxable account. These would all end up on a T3 slip. They will come from a trust in this case. So then you go in there and you enter your information. All right. So you click on T5 again. All the box numbers are provided here. All you have to do is follow the box numbers and plug in your amounts. Let's say you got interest income, whatever that is. I plug in the amount. All right. Now, other examples, typical examples, medical. So when it comes to medical expenses, you've got the medical expense section right here. So again, I click on the medical on the left. I've got the medical expenses section on the right. You simply click on the plus sign right here. And now you see you've got the entries for your medical expenses. Plug in your first one. Okay, the date of the expense, and then enter the description. Let's say dental, let's say, for example. You plug in your amount. When you want to enter an additional receipt, you've got the plus sign right here that you can simply click on, and the program now provides you with the additional entry where you can enter the next medical expense, and so on. All right. Now, if you've got an infirmity or a recognized disability, okay, that the government has recognized in this case through the disability certificate, you go back to the medical section over here on your left-hand navigator, and you see here you've got a section called infirmity and disability amounts for yourself. Okay, and you can claim the additional credit for infirmity or disability. So you would enter a description of your infirmity, whatever it is, or disability. Okay, so you enter a description, and then if your disability has been recognized by the federal and provincial governments, then you would choose claim the disability amount. Okay, and you would do the same thing for Quebec. Usually they go hand in hand. Usually when the federal accepts, Quebec will usually accept as well. And then you claim disability amount and you've got your amount. All right, and you plug in all of your information right here. Once you've done that, so I click next, and now the program takes me to the next section, and so on. So you see, just navigate through the sections over here on the left, okay, one by one. You complete whatever needs to be completed. You don't have to complete every single section. Just, when you're within these sections, you don't need to choose every single option. Just choose the relevant one. For example, let's say donations over here. Click on the plus sign next to donations and enter your donation amount. And so on. And once you're done, basically the entries are done. Now you will notice here, once I'm done the entries, like I mentioned before, now you can check your diagnostics and see whether you are missing certain information at the bottom over here. You could go over here, you're married, but no spousal information been entered. That makes sense. And I could go ahead and fix it. In this case, I'll simply add my spouse. All right. So in this case, I will simply go here and add a spouse. So you see right next to my name, I've got the option over here to add my spouse. And I simply click on it. A new tab will appear for my spouse. And now I start entering her information. So I'm going to actually enter her actual information as a joke all the time when it comes to these, when I do these examples. But let's enter here the information. All right. So there we go. And then you choose, again, you're doing the exact same entries as what you did on your side. Okay, so it's the same address that she has with me. As a mailing address changed, no. And now you'll notice again, CRA questions, Revenue Quebec questions, Quebec drug insurance plan. Everything else is identical to what I did in my file. Okay, so I just have to answer now the questions for her. So I'll just do this really quickly just to clear the error messages. All right, she's not a diplomat. Yes. Yes, and over here I'll say no. There's no foreign mailing address. Okay, and I'm just gonna go through this really quickly. We've already went through this on my side in this case. Now remember the solidarity tax credit, only one can claim the credit for both of us. So in this case, I put it in my file, so I'm not gonna claim it in her file. All right. And so on. Drug insurance plan, I'll say that she was covered on the group insurance plan for now, just to get rid of the messages. Okay. And so on. Yeah, I want a Netfile, autofill, that's fine. And then the interview setup, I'll just claim that she doesn't have any income just to get the ball rolling and be able to calculate the return. All right, so once I'm done, you'll notice now both of our files are here under tabs. Okay, you see them right there. Okay, and then once I'm done, I simply click on the review tab. And once I go to the review tab, my God, I'm a good preparer. I've got a $4,000 fat refund. Man, I am awesome. All right, at that kind of refund, I would charge a royalty. I wouldn't charge a fee. So there you go. All right, so when you get to the review tab, you're going to see now the bare bones result. So it tells you essentially the bare bone result of the return. Now, we're not completely done. Okay. It's very important when you're here in the review tab to go to the messages to see whether I'm eligible to Netfile. Can I Netfile these returns? All right. So in this case, for example, with Monica, with my wife, I noticed that I said she was over 65, but hey, I indicated that she has no income, meaning that she has no OAS, right? Ordinarily, she should at the very least get OAS. So I have to confirm that she's not getting OAS. Okay. So I could click on the link over here to confirm. In this case, right here, confirmation you did not receive old age security pension, and I will say yes to her file, which should clear now that error message. All right, and when I go to my messages, now you see here what's called, I still got error messages, but in theory, I should be able to file the return. All right, a tax return was generated. However, errors you cannot currently file. You have to confirm that she has a nil return. So I will go ahead and click on that link. And notice it takes me directly to where I need to confirm that my spouse has no income. I go to review. Again, I'm at 4,000, nothing changes, and now I should be eligible for both. And there you go. So see, I get messages. Here it says that I'm eligible to transmit the return, both federal and Quebec. Okay, I still have error messages though, just to double check. The program's going to give me warnings to tell me, hey, you should consider these things before you file your return. Maybe you're missing some extra information. Now from here, I can go to my federal summary. And when I click on the federal summary, it gives me a line-by-line comparative between both returns. So I see a bare bones summary of what my return looks like over here. I get the same thing for Quebec. Okay, I'm going to get a Quebec summary here as well. So you see it right there. And then I got my tax savings ideas that tells me essentially, hey, you should consider these things. They're not necessarily relevant to your file, but you should consider them. Maybe you could get some extra credits, in this case, on your return. Finally, once I've done that, I go to the tax return tab. Okay, I'll accept. I'll go to the tax return tab over here, and the program will now give me, under the tax return tab, it's going to give me the results of my return on the official forms. So you see anything with a maple leaf on them is the official federal form. Anything with a fleur de lys on it, okay, will be, in this case, the official form for Quebec. All right, the program is showing you here. Okay, you also get some additional forms, which we call in-house forms, which have no maple leaf or fleur de lys. And this is basically extra summaries or estimated calculations of certain amounts. So for example, here gives me a comparative tax return with my spouse with all the relevant line numbers. I also get a bare bones summary of my return as well. Okay. And I also get some estimates of certain amounts. So for example, my solidarity tax credit, it tells me what I'm going to get, which in this case will be a total amount of $712, and I'll get them in 4 installments. I have the same calculation for the GST credit as well. Okay, there they are. So I get, again, the same, very similar installments as well, and so on. All right, so once I'm here, I'm done. Okay, and essentially I'm just double checking the return to see whether all the numbers jive. Don't hesitate to go here on the return. The return is still pretty easy to navigate through and pretty easy to read. It's not as hard as people make it out to be. Okay, the government makes it pretty easy to read and to consult. Okay, so I strongly recommend you go through it to see that, just double check to see that you're not missing any information in the file. Now from here, you can print the return by clicking on print at the bottom, or you can save it as a PDF. So you click on save as PDF, for example, you choose the path where you want to save the return, and then you choose which forms you want to save. Okay, in this case, of course, we will recommend all of them. Remember, you're not going to be paper filing this return, so just save them all as a PDF. So you have a copy of return in case you don't have access to UFile anymore, you change computers, whatever it is, you've got now access to your results. Okay, and then once all of that is done, you've checked your messages, you've checked the return, everything looks great. You click on the Netfile tab at that point, and now you are ready to submit the returns. And you do it one transmission at a time. You start with a federal, you end up with Quebec. You do the same thing for your spouse. You start with a federal, you end up with Quebec. And then at the end, you will end up with an acknowledgement report, which will have the confirmation numbers of both of the returns. All right, so that's it. I think that about covers the navigation of the software. Just give me 1 minute because I heard my doorbell, but in the meantime, I'm just gonna check on my doorbell 1 second because they're kind of insistent. So let me just double check. But in the meantime, I'll be right back. Just line up your questions and I'll be right back and we're gonna answer your questions. Just 1 second.
Thanks, Jerry. Lynn Bennett, would you like to say something while we're waiting for Jerry?
I'm just delighted to see this presentation that could be so helpful because I know a lot of the people that come to our presentations are gradually working up the courage to do their own returns using UFile or other software. So I'm really delighted to see this explained so carefully. Yeah, great.
Yes, I agree.
Awesome. Yeah,
Jerry,
thank you, Lynn. Thank you, Lynn. Yeah, go ahead, Lynn. Yeah, what was the so we'll go through the questions?
Yeah, so I'm back at the chat, and Anthony is Anthony, would you like to
Yeah.
speak for yourself here, please?
Yeah, just a question. When I'm importing from CRA and from Revenue Quebec, like
Yeah.
some of the investment
Mm-hmm.
slips, there's different amounts on them. And if I import from both, I'm getting duplicates. And I've been decided that the easiest thing to do is to import from Quebec and just add the missing federal numbers from them. Is there a way in UFile that I don't know how, or I haven't found how to merge the matching slips together?
No, there's no direct way. The reason it happens is because for whatever reason, and we don't know why,
Okay,
Revenue Quebec changes the names of the slips. Meaning
okay,
that, for example, let's say you got a slip from an investment slip from TD, they're going to
yeah,
say TD Toronto Dominion Banque Toronto Dominion, and because of that, what the system thinks is that it's two separate slips.
gotcha.
And that's why it happens, you know. So unfortunately, we're not the only ones that have that problem. The other softwares have it as well. Unfortunately, there's nothing we could do. Usually, what we recommend is to go by the federal, especially with investment slips, because more often than not, they're basically the same amounts, and they're usually based on the federal.
Yeah,
So usually that's what we tell clients to do is just do the federal, and then if there's a difference in Quebec, you just plug in the Quebec amount. That's usually
yeah.
what we recommend.
I actually found it easier to do it the reverse with less changes for the
Okay.
federal, but either way,
Yeah.
okay. Thanks for your question. I
Yeah.
was just
No problem. No problem.
wondering.
Absolutely. Thank you for your question. Actually, thank you for your question.
Hey,
All right. Next one. Yeah.
Elizabeth said she's been a happy UFile user
Mm-hmm.
and no issues with hackers. Uh, she adds, unclear regains losses history. Does
Yeah.
the program deal with that?
Yes, it does. Yeah. So the capital gains history, again, you won't encounter this unless you've got like some complex capital gains. Like for example, capital gains from like if you own like a small corporation, you know, or things like that. But history, the history part that's more important would be the capital losses. So if you have capital losses from previous years that you want carried forward to the following years to be able to use them up in the future years, here when I go back to the interview setup, you've got right here under carry forward amounts and prior year information, you've got losses of prior years carry backs. You tick that box, you click next, and then you're going to see that section now on your left-hand navigator or left-hand menu, losses of prior years carry back. And then from there, you've got your net capital losses of other years. Okay, so that would be usually the relevant section that you would need if you have basic returns, you know, with maybe like a taxable brokerage account where you've had losses in the years that you haven't used yet against your capital gains. And this is where you would enter all the historical information. Usually you can find that information on the CRA website. Again, my account usually should have that information, the carry forward amount that you have, and it'll all be there. You know, usually you should have them all there. So that's how you would input them if, let's say, you didn't have them the software. But if you've been using UFile for several years and you've racked up a few of these losses over the years, the program is going to autofill this section, the carry forwards. There's nothing for you to do. UFile handles it and will track them for you.
Okay, Lynn Bennett added some information in response to an earlier question about not getting information about interest earned in bank accounts. So Lynn, would you like to recap?
Yeah.
Yeah, that was just a quick answer to, I think it was iPad who was asking about that. I don't think the banks are obligated if it's less than $50 to, or maybe it's just a policy, but you still have to declare it. So then you'd have to go and look for that interest in your statements for the tax year. So that's how you do that if you don't get a tax slip.
Thanks. DCHC says on the last UFile, T5s were downloaded twice.
That shouldn't have happened unless there were like different, like I said, sometimes it happens with Quebec because Quebec changes the descriptions of the emitters of the slip. Again, we don't know why they do that, but they do. Otherwise, it should not duplicate. If that happens, contact us. Because then it could be some bigger problem that we might have to see. So contact us if it happens again.
Okay.
Okay, is that caused by the auto load or autofill or downloading that we
Yeah,
use?
sometimes with autofill, It's the descriptions. The issue is the emitters, is the descriptions of the emitters. Sometimes they'll put different descriptions. Like I said, this happens a lot with Quebec, is Quebec just adds stuff to the descriptions. We don't know why they do that. Even though the emitter never does that, they do it. But sometimes maybe the emitter themselves, they might want to distinguish something, they put a different description. But if that's not the case, and that means it's a bug and we need to know about it, and you have to contact us. So you have to email us. It's help@ufile.ca, and you just contact us, and chances are we might need a copy of the file just to see what's going on. But usually that's what happens. Is sometimes some emitters, they play around with the descriptions of the slips, and then Quebec does it as well sometimes, and that's why it's never that clean.
Hi,
That's why.
hi, it's Anthony. What I've noticed is just sometimes you'll get like a global slip from a company, and
Yeah.
then you get itemized slips as well, so you can get
Yeah.
duplicates that way.
Yeah, very good example, Anthony, actually. Yeah, that's right. That does happen. That does happen. Yeah,
Okay.
you're absolutely right. Yeah, thank you. Thank you for the additional info there.
Okay, there are a couple of people casting about for somebody to do their tax returns for
Yeah.
them and wanting to know,
Yeah.
Terry, if you do that or if you
No,
could recommend someone else.
No, well, the point of this is to do it yourselves, right? I mean, that's that's the whole point of the presentation, is that you guys do them yourselves. No, I don't do. I just do very close friends and family. I don't actually. I don't prepare. I simply don't have the time. I'll be honest. I just don't have the time with tax season. I pull a lot of hours during this time trying to help out with the support agents and then the trainings and the things like that. So, because I'm also like a second level support, so when an agent gets stuck with a complex question, it usually ends up on my plate, and I need to figure it out. So, yeah, unfortunately, I don't. But the point of it is to try to do it yourself. That's the whole point. And UFile is easy enough that you can do it yourselves. That's the whole thing. Try it that way.
Right.
Okay.
Illustrating
Joyce wants to know, is the UFile software compatible with Windows 7 Professional?
Wow, Windows 7.
Good question. I know we sunsetted Windows 7. I'm not sure about Professional. Ida, do you have that handy? Do you have our requirements handy? I don't know if she's there.
I'm still here.
Yeah, do you have it handy, or our requirements? I don't
No,
remember
I don't think
offhand.
so.
What do you
It
want?
may work,
No,
but we
it's,
don't support it.
eyeglasses.
Yeah,
We
that's just
Okay.
Okay, I
So,
believe we don't support it. It's best with Windows 10 and above due to
but it will
security.
work. But it will work, right? If they actually install it, yeah.
should work. As far as I know, it will work, but you may have problems with the Netfile or anything like that, because I think the connection after you need to have a specific level of browser and Windows in order for the government to accept them,
Yeah.
as far as I know.
Yeah.
So it may be an issue.
Okay, Joyce, do you want to ask anything else? Okay, I'm continuing here. iPad 2, does the solidarity tax credit depend on your income?
Yeah, I think Lynn answered that one. And it's exactly Lynn's answer, basically, which is, yeah, it depends on your income. It's a progressive credit, so the more income you make, the less you will get. And then up to a certain threshold, you don't get any more. So essentially, yeah, it's exactly what Lynn answered there in the chat. I mean, you could see the estimate. If I show all of you the estimate calculation, you'll see exactly roughly how much you would be entitled to. So this would be the solidarity tax rate. So you can see that you got a base amount of 42,000. So as long as you make less than 42, you're getting basically the maximum amount. The moment you're getting above 42 is when you start really, it starts getting reduced at a 3% clip for every dollar that you're above. So yeah, it is based on income, absolutely, and the situation, just like exactly what Lynn answered.
Hey, so next, Lynn Bennett has entered a caution. She says this year the Canada Revenue Agency is late making tax
Yeah.
slips available
Very true.
in my account. So if you're using autofill, be aware that the CRA may be missing slips. She says Revenue Quebec seems to have more.
That is so true. Yeah, because there's a very simple. Yeah, Lynn, you're absolutely right. And the simple reason for it was because, for example, the T3 slips weren't ready. That was the major issue because of the capital gains inclusion rate change. They were supposed to have something different on the T3s, and then finally the government scrapped it, right? So the issue was they emitted all these new slips, then they had to backtrack on those slips and put back the old ones. And that's the main reason why they're late. You're absolutely right. We're getting that comment all over the place right now from all of our users my autofill unfortunately is not complete right now. They just don't have all the slips as of right now.
Well, that's disappointing. Okay, Elizabeth says she does her own tax returns to keep aging brain cells busy.
Oh, they definitely will with all the changes that happen every single year. I mean, Elizabeth, you will live forever. Let me tell you, with all the changes, the government makes every single year. Oh my God, it's just incredible. It's just incredible.
Sima says, is UFile software compatible with the most recent operating system for an iMac, for a Mac
Yeah,
computer?
the answer is no, not the local install version, so meaning the one that you would have to install on your desktop, but you could use our online version, which in that case, it's not dependent on your operating system because you're doing it through your browser. Okay, so everything I just showed right now, it works the same way online. It works exactly the same. The interface is identical to what I just showed all of you right now. So if you have a Mac, you can use it. You can use the online version, which you can use through your browser, unless and some people have done that is that they do what they call like a dual boot or dual install, where they've got Windows and Mac OS on the same computer. And if they're using Windows on the Mac, then it'll work. But the local install version needs Windows. There's no way around it.
Sima, is that helpful?
Uh,
Okay. DCHC are asking, is there a help person we can call?
yes, you can call our support line. Okay, that comes with the UFile. You are entitled to support. I believe the basic version you might not be able to, but if you buy UFile 12, it comes with phone line support. And usually, I think you can find it in the help menu. If you go to support assistant, for example, and then you go to next, you go next, and then from there you can either contact us, and then usually there'll be a phone number provided here if your version is entitled to a phone number. So that's what you can do. If not, the quickest way is help@ufile.ca. Usually email is quicker, it's faster for us. You could do that as well. And a lot of times, so let me just see, where do I enter? Ida, where's the place where I could submit the file? It's support
And the
assistant, isn't it?
support, yeah, help,
Mhm.
support assistant, and when you click here,
Next. Yeah, I guess if I put an email or because
you'd
normally there
probably
should have
need
been an
to
option.
choose.
Oh no, I
You,
probably need
Just go here, right?
the UFile number probably. Yeah, I probably need the UFile
uh,
number.
yeah, they'll usually ask for it, but you should be
Yeah.
able to. And under the select category, do you have something there?
Yeah, I choose where do I enter, which should be the common thing. Let me see if I put in a request number. Yeah, it's bizarre. Maybe I do because I didn't register the product. That could be it. Maybe because, but it's right here, support@ufile.ca.
Okay,
So
that,
that's the email that you could contact us with.
Jerry, this is
Yeah,
super helpful. Last question. Would
yeah,
you explain the difference between what UFile provides for free,
yes.
you know, and what UFile sells for a fee that would apply to, most seniors?
Yeah, I mean, basically, I'll show you our online product, what we offer for free. I don't know about TurboTax. I'll be honest with you. I don't know what they offer for free. I know I can tell you the differences with our Windows product, like what we offer and things. But here, when you go to we go to UFile Online. Oops, yeah,
Yeah,
UFile
that's correct.
Online, and then from here, file for free, right? And then I go No, see all features. Hold
No,
on.
go on get started. No, tips tools. I think the file for free is on tips tools.
Yeah, file for free. Okay, there you go. So this is what we offer as far as filing for free with UFile. So basically, the types of returns. So if your total income is less than 20,000, it's free. If you're if you're filing a tax return for the first time, it's free. If it's very simple, meaning you've only got, let's say, a pension slip, some RSP and whatever, then it's free. You could just use the code here, which is UFile free, and then the program will determine whether it's simple enough or not. Okay. And if you're a student, if you're a student, it's free as long as you got at least 1 month of full-time studies when you enter, and then you enter this code, and it'll be, and then it's going to be free. As far as the Windows version, what distinguishes us from now, I don't know what TurboTax offers for free online, but I know what we do on the Windows version is that our version of UFile, but basically what we sell is everything included, meaning that you could do business returns, you could do rental returns, rental forms, you could do, pension income splitting, things like that. TurboTax, depending on the type of return you're producing, you have to pay extra. So, for example, if let's say you have a rental property, you need to get a more premium version of TurboTax to file. While with UFile, regardless of which Windows version you buy, it comes included with everything. Okay, so you could do rental forms, you could do, as you can see here, are you self-employed, you have a lot of investment income, you have rental properties, it's all included with us. That's the difference with us. I don't know.
And
Yeah.
what is the cost?
So the cost, if we were to buy, so let's say,
You
just
file online or you file Windows?
yeah, I guess both. So if you say you file online,
So the basic return for you file online is $20.95. If you go and get started and you have a comparison with the prices of TurboTax, you will see the prices. No, Jerry, you clicked too fast.
Yeah.
Go compare you
There you
file
go.
and
Okay.
TurboTax. So it's $20.95 for a single return. If you have a spouse, you add $15, and every dependent is $9 extra. So as you saw on our website right now, we have a promo. You file for the box, you can go to our shop, Jerry. It's also on promotion this week. You could go products, Windows, and click on the shop buy now, or there's the price actually.
Yeah.
It's $23.99 up until next week for UFile 4 and $36.99 for UFile 12. In those packages, you do have extra 4 returns at no extra charge for individuals who have income below 25,000. So that means if you're, I don't know, you have a child that's with you who's 20 and over, he's still a dependent, and his income, let's say is under 25, he only did like $12,000. Well, his return will not count as a paid return. So that's that. Going back to before the help form, Jerry, if the product is registered, there should be a checkbox at the bottom, check to authorize UFile to view your tax file.
Okay.
You could see that right now probably in your online version because you probably registered the product.
Yeah. Yeah, exactly. Which I did not in this case, and that's why I'm not getting it. But usually this is the quickest way, and it's nice to be able to get a copy of the file. So let's say, for example, there's a calculation you're not sure as to why UFile is doing it in a certain way, and you want to see why. You're trying to understand. Just send us a copy of the file. And what's nice about it is that we don't get your personal info. So when you send us a copy of your file, your name, your SIN, your address is completely scrambled. We don't see it. We don't see it as a support agent. We don't see them at all. And we just see the rest of your return, so we could double check and see where the issue is and where the errors are, and we could fix them. Okay, so that's a good, better way of doing it, to go through the support assistant.
Okay, great. And again, this is recorded and with Jerry's permission and with notice to the audience. So I'll send everyone who registered a follow-up email with a link for the recording. I'm not, Jason, do you know if that would be available today or would it be Monday?
No, I'll send you the link probably around 5:30 today.
Okay. So then, by this evening, you'll have the recording in case you want to do a refresher. Jerry and Ida, you've been super. Thank you very
Thank
much.
you.
Thank
Well,
you.
thank you, everybody.
And
Thank you.
and good luck to everyone for doing your tax returns, and
Yeah.
Jerry and Ida for meeting all the demands. Anthony
We
is
do have,
applauding.
sorry, we do have a website, as Jerry showed you, and there's lots of information on the website too. And we have a YouTube page. If Jerry wants to show, we have a help center within the top help center where there's questions and answers right there.
Oh, great.
And if you scroll completely at the bottom, you have links to our YouTube channel, which does have some how-to videos and, blogs and stuff like that
Yeah,
we
right here.
discuss.
Right here. So when you click
Oh,
on over
yeah.
here, you get to our YouTube page where we've done like a lot of how-to videos, and we do a lot of podcasts as well, and things like that. So we've got a lot of things that you could check on. So and we also do some Facebook Live. And by the way, we also do Facebook Lives, by the way, where we answer tax questions directly. So if you like our page, if you like our Facebook page, you'll get notification on our next Facebook Live. And then what happens is you literally, me and Ida just go live, and we just get questions through the chat of Facebook, and we just answer your any and all tax
Oh,
questions.
that's
Okay,
terrific.
so go ahead and like our page, our Facebook page. So let me just do that and show you our Facebook page here. So when I go here to Facebook, so there's our Facebook page right here. Okay, and then from there we also host, like I said, live sessions. So we also put tidbits and things, and there we are. This was our last Facebook Live, which was a week ago, right? Ida? Yeah, it was about a week ago.
Yeah.
It was a week ago, and we literally just through the chat, through the comments, through the comments of Facebook, you just ask us questions, and we answer any and all tax questions. Okay, so we do this. We're probably gonna do one, I don't know, next week or the week after, likely. And just go ahead, like our page, and you'll get notification for our next one. And we're there to help you out. We do this for free, by the way. I mean, we don't even charge. We just we literally just go on there and say, you just ask whatever you like. So, and that's it.
That's terrific. A great
Yeah.
service. Well, thanks so much for doing a special session for the Outwater Library again this year.
Absolutely. Oh, it's our pleasure. It's our pleasure to do it. We love we've been doing this for many years, with Atwater. We've been associated with Atwater for many, many years.
Yes.
We really enjoy doing this, and we'll continue doing it again in the future years. So, and again, like I said, if you want to join us on Facebook Live, go right ahead. It's great. And you can literally ask anything. You can literally ask anything, and we'll answer.
Terrific.
Thank you.
Okay.
Thank you so much.
Wonderful.
All right.
And have
Thank
a
you.
good weekend, everyone.
Thank you. Thank you,
Thank you,
everybody. Thank you.
Alan.
Okay.